basketball fans, it's me, DC, here for Fantasy Basketball Analyzer, to help you get ready for Week 15 of the NBA season by breaking down the schedule and the waiver wire. Long time no see, although it's not completely true if you've been watching the videos. I was still here Week 13, 14, but I've been gone. I got out there in the world, outside the studio. Jarvis is here. He missed me, apparently. Hope you guys did too. Let's get into looking at Week 15 schedule by starting with pace and defensive efficiency. It's been a couple weeks since we updated the numbers because I was gone and pre-recorded them, but things haven't changed too much because we're far enough into the season, right? We're now talking about Week 15 of a 25-week season, 24 for fantasy. San Antonio, Detroit, Houston, Charlotte, Indiana, Utah, Golden State on the edge because they're high pace, not necessarily because of the defense. They're all up there. Like I said, if you go back and watch from a couple years ago, the fact that even more teams, Lakers, Sacramento, are all up over 109 on my metric, the combination of pace and defensive efficiencies coming from cleaning the glass. I want to always give them credit for their work. It's a great site. Anyway, up at 109 is pretty surprising. The league average for just defensive efficiency, the middle column, is 114.3. That's really high. This is a high offensive season, and it started really hot, kind of leveled up, and it's ticking back up. The season, the offense normally goes up anyway. Down at the bottom, Cleveland, Miami, Philly, Milwaukee, Brooklyn. Brooklyn's a standout because their defense has been so good lately as that team's been running into form. They're dealing with injuries now, and so we'll see what that ends up looking like. But they're down here in this group even below Boston because their pace is actually a little bit slower and their defense rating's pretty close to that, which is interesting. Miami's the one that really seems to kill your fantasy stats when you look at it. It's not just like what we see of playoff Jimmy Butler and think in our head for what he can do on defense. The team just messes things up, and also they're kind of so off on offense that can be a little bit of an issue too. I just went and saw them in person and I watched plenty of games and thought about how their offense looks weird, but it's really something to see live. Anyway, let's take those numbers and apply them to the Week 15 schedule. So looking here at the schedule, first thing that should jump out at you, we got 3 teams with only 2 games: Golden State, OKC, Philly. There are going to be problems in your weekly lock leagues, and you're going to be hurting. I've got Embiid in leagues. You're going to be hurting if you only get them for 2 games, so you got to think ahead about that. Otherwise, a handful of teams play 4 games, 13 to be exact. So the other half of the league, all 15 teams, play 3 games. So we are in a 3-game heavy league. As usual, you can look here. Dark green's the teams you really want to attack: Detroit and San Antonio. Light green, good to go after. Dark red, stay away. Pink, not quite stay away. That's the idea. You can look at certain weeks and see people who have a good week. Chicago gets Atlanta, Indiana, Charlotte, Orlando. Only 2 of those are in the green, but Atlanta and Orlando, you're not really scared of their defense, right? There's a couple teams like this, and it's really helpful for if you're picking your DFS matchups or if you're doing some player props, depending on if you live in one of those magical states that allow you to put a little money on the games. But what we're going to focus on is what helps for fantasy. Be on the lookout. Boston has 2 games next week, and Utah. So think about that at the end of the week if you're trying to make any pickups. Neither of them have a Sunday game. So if you're streaming anyone, go ahead, cut bait Saturday. Start thinking ahead for next week. Check back in with this channel. We'll have the video out ready for you early. If you ever don't see it or I'm running late, I will tweet that stuff out ahead of time so you can help plan. But let's go ahead and look at the back-to-backs. So when talking about back-to-backs, you're talking about some guys resting, and we're kind of in a bunch of injuries right now. We got Halliburton out. You know, Giannis was missing. I went to a game, was supposed to see Giannis. He didn't play. Went to a different game, and we didn't get to see Cat. Gobert left the game hurt. Like, things are going on right now. We're going to get better. But people are going to be resting even if they are playing. We've got a handful of back-to-backs here. I'm glad to see players are getting healthy. The standout here, if I'm looking at it, I mean, obviously you can look at certain things. Zion's already hurt, so I don't need to talk about New Orleans. Lakers, are they going to rest? Maybe they got to think. So if you're afraid of those types of things, Milwaukee's got 4 games and no back-to-backs. Memphis has 4 games that look like no back-to-backs, but Sacramento's actually the second leg of a back-to-back. I'm not sure that they're even still resting Bane on that, but just be aware. It wouldn't be impossible for that to happen. Otherwise, Miami doesn't have any. They're always screwing around with it. Clippers have a set rest, so someone will. Boston might rest some guys at the start of the week, and Brooklyn doesn't have enough healthy guys for them to really have a choice with it, so they'll probably play both the Philly and Detroit back-to-back. Although with Detroit, you wouldn't be shocked if they try and go a little lighter, but they don't really have a choice. They're already light right now because of injuries. But to really get our edge, it's about what we can do with streaming. If you take a look here, we got a pretty good week down here at the bottom. Monday, Tuesday with 7 games. Wednesday with 10, that's really loaded. It's going to be hard to stream there. Thursday, 6. Friday, 5. Saturday, 11. A lot of games. And Sunday, 4. So the second half of the week is where you can really attack it. 6, 5, and 4 games. Pretty much anyone you pick up, you're going to find a way to sneak it in your lineup. But the 7 games back-to-back to start the week are also good. there's a lot of opportunity to make a big, like, 5-game week because we have 5 good days of streaming. There are ways, if you look at the schedule, especially with a bunch of people having the Monday, Tuesday back-to-backs or close to it, where you can work something out, avoid those Wednesday, Saturday with maybe just a single change, and really get after it. So overall, my favorite schedules for the week is Cleveland number 1 and then Charlotte. They both have 4 games. All 4 are good streaming days. Cleveland's the best because they've got all 3 of the lowest volume days. But overall, Knicks, Houston, OKC, Clippers, you like the matchups. They're weighted later in the league week too. So Charlotte's got 4 good streaming days, but they got the slightly lighter schedule, but they're spread out. So if you want to pick someone up, and we will talk about because we're doing waiver wires in a moment, there's some options there, and you're going to be able to make that pickup and use them for all week. But you are skipping out on that Friday low volume day. Might be giving someone else a little edge, especially there's plenty of teams that play on both those days. Besides Cleveland, both of those later days, you got Indiana, Memphis, Miami, Milwaukee. All of those teams play both the Friday, Sunday low volume days. If you're interested in any of them. Now, they all play only 3 games the next week, so it doesn't really help you next week, but you can get a little push, and with only 5 or 4 games, they will definitely get in your lineup. Even if they're like a player, if you've got the moves to pick up later in the week, go for it. If you're doing that approach, I like to do something like potentially look at Boston, Charlotte, Chicago coming out of this weekend, grab that back-to-back, and then you pair that with someone. I mean, if you get Boston, Charlotte, or Chicago, they all play on Thursday. You can hold them for all 3 of those, and then you move to one of the other teams we're talking about, and you've created this 5-game streaming week. Be real easy to tackle. There's other ways to go about this. Take a look down this board. The link is down below. We're going to move on to the waiver wire. Getting into waivers, let's start with someone I talked about before I went out of time and pre-record those videos. Cam Johnson's finally back. He's 70% rostered as of recording this. He was 60% like a day ago when I just checked it. Came back, 19, 6, and 2, steal, 2 blocks, 2 threes. He only played 22 minutes. Are they going to start resting him some? I think so. We've got an Indy, Memphis back-to-back to test. On the flip side, Phoenix is hurt right now. They might not have a ton of choice. He's back. He's available in 30% of leagues. He was 40% before. We talked about it before, getting ready for him to come back. It was a little bit longer than I expected. But he's the type of pickup and hold and use for the rest of the season, potentially. So he's not widely available, especially in shallower leagues. Give him a look. Make sure you're not cutting anything too crazy. But he could be more valuable long-term for you, say, in your fantasy playoffs than some of the guys I'm talking about now to stream. It depends on where your team is. If you're still fighting to get a good seeding or make sure you even get into the playoffs, and it turns out that he's resting, and we're going to find out this weekend, I mean, the Saturday, Sunday back-to-back here, Indiana, Memphis, see if he plays both. If not, that might matter for you because maybe you just need those games and can't give that up. And if it's that, we got a ton of guys to get into. If we are trying to win our week, and that's what we do here, right? That's what's on the catchphrase, the banner on top of the channel, everything. Charlotte's got the great schedule, right? I like Cleveland too, but I think Charlotte's got a little more that we can pick up here. Let's go with Jalen McDaniels. 49% roster available in half of leagues. Solid. I mean, he just had like a big box score, but solid. 12, 4, 3, 5 steals. That's a real surprise. Before that, 26 points on 5 3-pointers. I'm not expecting either of those to keep up, even if he's got the increased minutes, and he does. He played 35 minutes each of those games. But if we look back at his more reasonable games at 28 minutes or something, 10 and 5, 11 and 7, 17 and 6, getting you some threes and some blocks. It's helping on both the specialty stats and category leagues. That condenses pretty well for points league, but if he's going to get this extra one run, because Charlotte is hurt, and they definitely are. We got Hayward out there, and then take your pick. Is Martin out? Is Oubre out? Is LaMelo out? They are when I'm recording. They come in, they come out. They're dealing with a lot of injuries there. He's getting some extra run now. I think you pick him up, and he could be useful. And with 4 good streaming days, I think you could just roll with him. If he's not available, or you don't need a small forward, power forward, how about Dennis Smith Jr.? If LaMelo is going to be out, he hasn't popped yet, but he's 30% roster. You can look in 70% of leagues. 9, 2, and 7, you like the 7 assists, but before that, 8, 1, and 1. These aren't shocking numbers at 25 and 29. You're not going to be like going nuts happy about it, but he's got a good week, and I could expect more out of it. Available in 70% of leagues. On the other end of the spectrum, if you are in a shallower league, take a look and make sure Mason Plumlee's not out there. As an NBA player and watcher, this guy, he's not one of my favorites. But for fantasy, he's great. He's 77% rostered. So it's only like 23% of leagues, a quarter of leagues out there. But the shallower leagues, he probably is. And that's crazy. He should be rostered in all leagues. 17 and 9, 19 and 12. Even a 9-point game's like, oh, but he got 16 rebounds. Good for points and categories leagues. He's out there in a quarter leagues. Has a great schedule. Check in your shallow leagues. Make sure there's not someone that you've been waiting on. Say Colin Sexton. I cut Colin Sexton in a league. It wasn't even a shallow league, but he just shouldn't have been rostered anymore. If you got that in a shallow league, hoping for the points that aren't coming, grab Plumlee. He's doing it, and you'll be happy with it, especially this week. Next up, TJ McConnell. We've lost Halliburton for a little bit here. He's going to be out at least a week. I think that's a week till reevaluated. I don't think that's an expected comeback. 57% roster. Go get him in a little over 40% of leagues. Last game wasn't wow, 8-3-6, but 10-6, 29-9. The 29-9 got people excited. A lot of people jumped on it. That's how he got up to 57%. But he's playing well. 13-11 before that. If he's getting you 25 minutes a game, he's going to get you points. He's going to get you assists, and he's not going to hurt you. 71% from the floor, a perfect game from the floor. It was only 8 points, sure. 68% from the floor, though, even when he got 29 points. He's an efficient player that's great in a category league. He's still good in other leagues. If he's not out there, give him a harder look. He's 34% rostered. Well, Halliburton's out. He's worth picking up, but McConnell's the real prize that you want to go if you're trying to attack the Indiana situation. They've got a pretty good schedule. 4 games, 3 on the streaming days. They play 2 of those late games at the end of the week, but I don't think you can wait to pick him up. He's probably going to go up if he has any solid games at the start of the week, and then you won't get him for that weekend push. And to be clear, when I say weekend, I mean the Friday, Sunday. I'm excluding Saturday because there's 11 games. From a streaming standpoint, it's not going to happen. You're going to play all your stars, and your roster's going to be full. Next up, number 4 on my objectives, because we talked about a bunch of guys for the Charlotte choice. Grayson Allen, he's playing real well right now. Milwaukee's dealing with some injuries. 25-5, 17-5, 12-3. Get you a bunch of 3-pointers. I like him more in a points league than a categories league, although his 3-pointers help. He's not hyper efficient. He doesn't hurt you. When he gets, say, he shoots 25%, that's a problem. But he's a 45% shooter. He's a shooter. He's a 3 guy. He's 3D, maybe not true. 3 dirty, maybe a little bit. But he's fine for fantasy. He's available in 75% of leagues. Milwaukee has a decent schedule. Detroit, Denver, and then they get Indy and the Pelicans at the end for that push. So 4 games, 3 good streaming days, no back-to-backs. Pretty good pickup. Probably help you this week. When they get healthy, he's still not going to totally disappear, but don't cut anything wild for this. It's flash in the pan. This is a guy you turn over for streaming spots. 5th on my list is Karis LeVert. If Donovan's going to be out, LeVert is playing well. 50% rostered, so half of you out there can go grab him. 22-5-2 with a steal and 2 blocks. 23-4-6 with a steal and a block. He got combined 9 threes in those 2 games when Donovan hasn't played. He played 31 and 41 minutes. Cleveland has the best schedule, in my opinion, this coming week. Right? Knicks, Houston, OKC, Clippers. A little bit later in the week. All 4 on great streaming days. I'm really interested in this. If LeVert's out there, pick it up as long as Donovan's going to be out. I don't know how long he's going to be out. It's like a groin strain. He's listed as game time decision. We'll see. Maybe as of recording this and you're watching, he's already played in the Bucks or something, and LeVert didn't even play or something, and then this is silly. But if not, it's worth the gamble because that's high production with a great schedule that can really help you out. And LeVert's not a guy that you have to cut. He is the type where I would almost rather stream it most weeks. But when he has these good games, it's exciting. On the lower usage games, we're still looking at 22-4, 21-6. I mean, it can be 12-5, 13-1, but it's not always. All right, all the way down at the 6th spot on my list that I want to talk about, Isaiah Hartenstein. Hartenstein? God, I know it's Stein. I say Stein because I read it like Frankenstein. It doesn't matter. 25% roster. I'm wearing the Knicks gear. He's probably going to be on the thumbnail because he seemed like he should be an exciting pickup with Mitch Robb out with hand surgery. So far, it's not. I think it's worth a gamble, but look at the box scores here. 2-6-1, 4-4, 2-5. I was excited in the offseason when he signed here. I didn't know why the Knicks had so many big men, but I thought this could be interesting. We've seen Isaiah be productive in fantasy before, and he's just not. He's been, disappointment. It's been that meme of Kevin Sorbo not understanding how scripts work and reading the stage direction. Honestly, if I bring up this and we show the minutes of what's going on here, Mitch Robb missed one game. Small sample, right? We're talking about a 15-minute average. Isaiah played 17. Now, what's a little more interesting to me here is Jericho Sims, who's averaging 24 minutes over the last 3 games. He went up another 7 minutes. He was totally out of the rotation, former second-round pick. I'm a little curious what he's going to do. He's widely available. So if we're looking at speculative ads, I'm curious what they're going to pull off. He's 8% rostered. He got 12 and 8. Game before that, came in when Mitch got hurt. 2, 4, and 2, 2 blocks. It's nothing crazy, but that's a lot of minutes for a guy who's completely out there in 90% of leagues. I think I'm just watching, but we need to talk about it. If you want to grab Isaiah and see what happens, I think that's fine. New York doesn't have a great schedule this week. 3 games, 2 are on the good streaming days, and they are earlier. They play Cleveland and they play Boston. I guess the only downside is both of those matchups are against good defensive and slower pace teams. So they might not pop, but it also gives you a little chance to play big against the double bigs of Cleveland, right? So we'll see what happens here. You got to at least put them on your watch list if you're not ready to jump on it. And I understand if you're not ready because neither of those are blowing me away, but the opportunity is there. I expect something to emerge. And if not, we'll just chalk it up to Tibbs being a frustrating coach for fantasy owners. Like, you could avoid all that headache and just go to KJ Martin or Kenny Martin Jr., depending on which platform you're playing on, how they list him. He's been playing pretty well for Houston. He's in the starting lineup right now. 11 and 7 with 3 assists, 17 and 7, 22 and 9, getting you 3-pointers and occasionally get you blocked, like 1 every 3 games. Nothing crazy there. So you're playing him at power forward. He's not going to get you those defensive stats, but good at scoring. Overall, his shooting is not so bad, especially compared to Green on his team. Talk about bad shooting and volume. He doesn't shoot that many shots, so whether you get the 64% night or the 46% night, it doesn't really sway you, although it's not really what you want to see from a power forward. But 20% rostered, he's playing well. Houston's got an okay schedule. They've got 4 games. They start off Monday against Minnesota. You like the matchup. They get Washington, Cleveland, Detroit. Only the Cleveland one's on a higher volume day. So take a look at that. But he could be useful going forward, too. They only have 3 games next week, but I could see this start to be something we've seen him be useful in fantasy before. So I'm interested. And it's probably less of a headache than the Knicks situation. Or from there, Trey Murphy. We've talked about him in other videos. I said you should pick him up when we saw the Zion went down. He's only 56% rostered. Maybe that's because he hasn't completely popped or he's been a little inconsistent. New Orleans doesn't have the best schedule, but they've got 4 games. 2 of them are on good streaming days. They've got a back-to-back Tuesday, Wednesday. Like I said, I don't think you're working on Wednesday, but maybe you will. But I think Trey Murphy has value longer in the season than just streaming for this week. So if you want him for that reason, because he's got 4 games this week and 4 games next week, and you get to keep playing him for a while, I think it's worth it. 18 and 6, you're excited about that. You don't love the 15 or the 5 and 3. 17 and 2, 19 and 2. He's more interesting for a points league because it condenses. He hits you a lot of threes. It's fun when he gets 18 points, 2 3-pointers, and on 77% shooting. It's cool to see. It's actually more fun to watch how like money he can be from deep. But Trey Murphy has a role on this team. I don't think it's going anywhere besides the fact that they can't get healthy. So if you want more of a long-term ad and aren't looking for streaming, he's just solid. You're going to be the same small forward, power forward, or power forward center for some of these guys we've talked about. Available in half the leagues, a bit more consistent. For your category league, looking for defense, Alex Caruso's out there. You just want the steals and blocks. He's not going to score a lot. Last game, he literally got you 2 points, but he got 4 steals and 3 blocks against Detroit. That was the Bears game. I want to say you all saw it, but, you know, it was in the middle of the day, unless you caught a replay or something like that. Also, Chicago and Detroit maybe aren't the 2 teams you're knocking down doors to go watch play each other like they used to be. Anyway, Chicago's got a good schedule. Start off Atlanta and Indiana with the back-to-back. They get Charlotte. Orlando's the only game that's not high volume, so you start the week, grab those 3, get some defensive stats. It's only for category league. Available in 60% of leagues. You know what you're getting with Caruso. It's a fun player, niche category help in fantasy for category leagues, and probably not so much for points league, although blocks and steals do add up. If you listen to all that and you just don't want anything to do with it, Kyle Anderson, slow-mo. I'm not going to get into it. I can show the numbers here. We've talked about him before. He could be up and down. The last couple games, 20 and 10, 13 11, 13 11. Yeah, you're going to get 4 and 5 out of here. But you get steals, you get blocks, you get threes. Like, he doesn't hurt you. Sometimes it's just a little bit of a dud, but he's solid. Available in 40% of leagues. Naz Reid's out there, 34% of leagues. You need a big man. Minnesota doesn't have the best schedule. That's why they're all the way down here on the list. They've got the 4 games. Only 2 on the good streaming days, but you'd like the matchups of Houston, Pelicans, Memphis, Sacramento. Like, you like going against all those teams. I mean, Memphis got a bit better defense, but they play up in pace, so it kind of offsets it. For the watch list, just to touch on this, because we brought it up with, like, Cam Johnson. Jonathan Isaac, maybe he's ever coming back to basketball. He got pulled off the G League. He's supposedly practicing. 28%. I just watch him. I own him in a Dynasty League because I want to see what happens here, but it's been forever. Throw him on the watch list. How about Wendy Gabriel for the Lakers? 17% rostered. Lakers don't have a great schedule here. 3 games, only 1 on a good streaming day against the Clippers early in the week. But I'm watching it. Lakers need help. What's Gabriel going to do? Could he be worth it? And how do Diallo for Detroit? He's had a couple good games, and Detroit clearly isn't winning anywhere this year. If his minutes increase as the season goes on, we've seen Diallo be valuable for fantasy in spurts before. If they fully go into the tank and he gets more minutes, that could be interesting. It's only 5% rostered. So 95% of leagues he's out there. Don't grab him just yet unless he sparks. Throw the little watch flag or star, depending on the platform you're on. And then we'll come back to it if we see something more. I'm going to be watching him and maybe actually tune into a game to see it. I'm here in Michigan, so I have to wait 3 games to see all those games live. It is what it is. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't. Leave a comment, question down below, or hit me up on Twitter. I'm back. Let's get ready. We're going to push into the All-Star break. And we'll be going again a little bit during the All-Star break for fun. And then we're going to be right there in the midst of the fantasy playoffs. So you know what I want you to do? Go out, win your week. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, please hit the like button and leave a comment down below. It helps me grow the channel. If you want more videos like this, hit subscribe or even the little bell will give you alerts. And I'll be back soon with another video for you.